Hey Airheads! Today's episode of Aficionados Internet Radio is brought to you by Audible.com. If you sign up today, you can get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial if you go to audibletrial.com/aficionadoschris. With over 150,000 titles for your iPhone, Kindle, MP3 player, and my personal preference, the Android, you can choose from many titles out there. My personal recommendation would be I Don't Know What You Know Me From, Confessions of a Co-Star by Judy Greer. Once again, if you want a free audiobook and a free 30-day trial at audible.com, go to audibletrial.com/aficionadoschris. The link will be in the description. Now, let's start the show.
You're listening to Aficionados Internet Radio, aka What the A.I.R.
Hey everybody, Aficionados Chris here, and today on Aficionados Internet Radio we have yet another film content producer, makes some fantastic analytical reviews. You've probably seen him. Let's just put it this way, if the movie sucks, well, he'll let you know it in a very comedic and cynical sense. We have Adam Johnston of YourMovieSucks.org, or just simply YMS. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
That's fantastic.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good myself, and being the second reviewer on the show, I think it's truly a bit of an honor to have people who are far funnier and more talented than me on my silly little podcast. But I think the first question we have is a very obvious one with anybody, is what exactly inspired you to make the series to begin with? What made you want to decide to review bad movies?
Well, I don't just review bad movies, but that is kind of the focus, I guess, hence the title of the channel. Mm-hmm. I guess what really sparked it, I don't know. You could attribute that to quite a few things, because I tried to do a film review way back when on my vlog channel. That was just me talking to a camera. That, you know, a lot of YouTube film reviews seem to be exactly that. Mm-hmm. I did it. I wasn't feeling it. I don't think I did a very good job. It wasn't really my format, so I never tried doing that again until I saw Red Letter Media's Phantom Menace review, and a few other reviews on their channel too, I think. I might have found them back when they were doing their Star Trek stuff, actually. Anyway, it was at that point where I watched them and I was like, I wasn't aware that narrating over top of film clips and using music in the background was a format that was available that I could do. You know, it never even crossed my mind. So after that point is when I just decided to do my the film review channel that you see. And if you look at my earliest video, one of the first things I say is that I'm kind of doing it in the style of Red Letter Media. And in that video, it's borderline embarrassing just how much I'm emulating their style. Mm-hmm. But because of their style, I was able to basically use it to try and start something, and then eventually, pretty quickly, I moved into more of my own style, which is kind of why I don't take too much issue with anybody that's trying to emulate my style. A lot of people ask on my subreddit, like, oh, did you know that this person's ripping you off, blah, 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 they're using your music, blah, 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 tone of voice, etc. It doesn't really matter. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, and as long as you're transitioning into something that you can call your own, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Well, you know, influence has to come from somewhere, and sometimes it borders on plagiarism.
Yeah, Jim Jarmusch. There's a Jim Jarmusch quote that I can't even paraphrase it, but it has to do with just how imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But he explains it in a way that it's pretty much impossible not to take inspiration from something else that you've seen. So, I mean, even though Red Letter Media was obviously a huge influence, especially back at that point when I created the channel, there's other influences that have come into play that would affect the way I make videos, and a lot of influences of you know, film criticism I see on YouTube where I go, that's not what I want to do. You know, Yeah.
You gotta take the good and get the bad, and you get a little bit of what you create.
And I think it's also important to listen to criticism. I try to read the comments, and I more or less evolve and change what I'm doing based on what I would consider to be legitimate criticism. Obviously, there's a lot of illegitimate criticism, no matter whose channel comments you go on. But I'm able to find some good stuff in there where I can read it and reflect and try to change what I'm doing, or at least update what I'm doing. I don't think that I'll ever stop changing and growing. I definitely haven't at this point, so I'm always finding new ways to sort of improve what I'm doing.
Absolutely, and I think that kind of segues into, I think, one of the most important things about, because your particular style of video creating, like you said, is very similar to Red Letter Media, where you analyze and pick apart, in a good sense, why a movie that you're reviewing is bad. How do you go about picking a certain movie to look at analytically? Is it just kind of an accident, or do you just end up seeing a movie that you're thinking, this is really bad, I think I could do something with that?
Well, so the first video that I put on my channel was of Precious, because way back then I sort of wanted to be a little controversial. I thought that it would help me get attention, and it kind of did. Also, hence the Toy Story 3 review. But at the same time, it's not like I want to fabricate my opinions into something that's disingenuous. Disingenuous, yeah. So, I mean, like, my opinions are already there. It's not like I'm creating fake opinions because they're controversial. It's just I'm deciding which one of my opinions that I already have would be a good idea to sort of express something that not a lot of other people are saying. And that's also just a way that I want to try and be unique in that sense, that I don't want to just be regurgitating the same thing that everybody else has said. And that's why when people tell me to review something like The Room, I tend to not want to do that, because I mean, my opinion on The Room is the exact same as everybody else's opinion on The Room. And it's not like I discovered The Room and I'm trying to share it with people. When I did my Birdemic review, I don't think really anybody had reviewed it at that point. And when I say anybody, I mean anybody that does it in my format. JonTron's came out well after mine, and he did a good job with that. And obviously he didn't rip me off or anything. Everybody's free to review what they want to do, but it's a combination of different factors. So the one I'm working on right now is something that's pretty obviously bad, but nobody's really reviewed it. And I think it would be a good idea to share it with people in a sense, or help people discover it. Not going to say what it is.
Similar to Samurai Cop.
Sorry?
Sort of similar to Samurai Cop.
Yeah, in a way. Although they didn't. I mean, Samurai Cop was generally known as a bad movie before I did a video on it. But when I did a video on it, I was also trying to promote the fact that they were planning a sequel and that there was a Kickstarter and everything. So that was new information that I wanted to bring about with my review. And when I'm talking about what I decide for reviews, I'm talking about the larger, giant YMS ones. That Samurai Cop was just a thoughts on video, aka one that I didn't spend an entire month or two making. The bigger projects that I have going on, the full-length YMS reviews, those are the ones that I really try to pick as good targets as I possibly can. So anything ranging from Birdemic, a really obviously bad movie, to Nymphomaniac, an art house film, or Precious was art house, or big budget movies like World War Z. Just anything that I feel was. It doesn't necessarily even have to be something that the public ate up. Like World War Z is debatable whether or not people generally liked it, although I guess it's the highest grossing zombie movie ever made, so I guess people liked it. but I guess just trying to think of other things in my catalog to relate this information towards. I had something good in my head and I lost it.
Oh dear.
I lost it.
It'll come back.
Okay.
Well, that actually makes me think of because a lot of people, to bring up an example, like the Nostalgia Critic has said in various videos that he had like reviews he had in planning productions, but for one reason or another, maybe the film he was going to review just didn't quite work for the comedy aspect, or too much backlash for the fact that he was going to review it. Has there ever been a movie that you planned to do a YMS for, but for one reason or another it just didn't work and you just kind of stopped production? Has that ever happened?
No, but when I make something, I spend a lot of fucking time on it. So I'm generally going back and watching the video a good at least 3 times once everything's all done and the audio levels are set and everything, just trying to look for mistakes and trying to figure out if maybe there's a better way I could have presented something. And when my videos, like my World War Z thing was a total of 45 minutes long, so watching that 3 times after it's done takes almost I guess over between 2 and 3 hours to do. And especially if I'm making corrections, then it's if I make another correction, then I'm way back where I started.
Yeah.
But I've never abandoned a YMS review movie because I'm not too afraid of backlash, because even if my subscribers disagree with me on something, I think that my good fans understand that having a different opinion on something is not necessarily damning. Mm-hmm. I don't think that my audience is stupid enough to just leave if I have a different opinion on a movie. And I'm sure that there are lots of movies that I have a different opinion on than my fan base. I don't think they really get too butthurt over that. There have been some that I thought that I would do a simple thoughts on video that I wound up turning into a YMS video just because I started doing it. I'm like, wow, I actually do have a decent amount of material to work with. And there is, I guess, another thing that sort of relates to what you asked earlier is I also try to have a bit of a narrative when it comes to my reviews. So The Walking Dead, I wanted to tell the story about how Frank got fired unjustly. With After Earth, I wanted to provide context on exactly what went into the film and why it was made so poorly and what was happening with Will Smith and his son and exactly the reasons why it was made. So I want to create a narrative, but I don't want to fabricate a narrative. Mm-hmm. So that also goes into, I guess, my reasons for choosing something, is I want to be able to sort of tell a story at the same time, depending on the movie.
I think that's why your videos have been so successful, is because you spend a great amount of time getting all the at least most of the facts correct. I think you've had some corrections to make, but you go back on interviews.
I've been wrong on small details at least 10 times in my videos, maybe even 20 over the course of all my videos if you count everything. But usually, if you usually those small things that I'm wrong on don't really affect the overall review too much at all. As I mentioned in my last video, I kind of overanalyzed a bit with the clock in my Synecdoche review. So that kind of sucks. And as much as I would really like to have my videos be flawless, I guess I'm a human being. Unfortunately.
Well, I mean, no different to the film. I mean, is there not a flawed film?
Oh, is there a perfect film?
Exactly.
Debatably, my top 2 films are debatably flawless, but
yeah.
So The Holy Mountain, my favorite movie. When something's that non-literal, it's really difficult to try and call it out on something, because I mean, as far as I can tell, pretty much everything in it is intentional. Mm-hmm. The only goof I can think of in The Holy Mountain is when the guy says, he has a chamber of 1,000 testicles, but he said 999 other men, so that would make it 2,000 testicles. But maybe he meant pairs of testicles and didn't say pairs, or maybe it was intentionally wrong because of some other subtext or metaphor that was trying to happen in the film. It's possible. It's not really something that you can definitively prove, but I don't know. With the majority of films, it's pretty easy to tell when something's intentional or otherwise with a film when it comes to the director. When it's like, I don't know. I guess with a lot of my reviews, you can see parts that are things that I pick apart and explaining why something would be intentional or not. In Synecdoche, New York, in part 2, I guess I mentioned that that dog that got found by Hazel's character. There was a small continuity error that I didn't really mention in that review, where the dog was there and then the dog wasn't there. I would say that that's probably a flaw in the film. I might mention it when I get down to the ending of that review, just to sort of wrap things up, but I felt like it would have been breaking the flow if I mentioned it. But yeah, there's debatably perfect movies because perfection is just a matter of whether or not everything the director intended to do was successful.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also depends on like the person. Maybe there's a film that they see as flawless, but to someone else it's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can give a movie a 10 out of 10 rating, like a flawless rating, but for the most part, the vast majority of the films that exist are flawed. Like definitely 99.99999, etc. Like the only time there can be a flawless film is, it's sad to say, but the less ambitious your film is, the more likely it is to be flawless. So if it's just, if the entire movie is just two people talking with each other, and there's like, what could you mess up? If it's just two people talking to each other, unless they state some factual inaccuracies. But then at that point, it's like, was that the character's flaw or was that the writer's flaw? So when a movie is flawless or close to flawless and I wind up appreciating it, it's generally one that was that, but was also ambitious at the same time. So something like Birdman that recently came out. The Goofs listed on IMDb, I'm not sure I would call those too big of flaws. They're pretty minor. So considering the scope of what that movie set out to do and how it was filmed and just how complex it was in its filming and execution, that's something that I wind up really respecting for its lack of flaws, or almost lack of flaws, because when something's that ambitious, it brings a lot of room for error into play. And so it's pretty amazing that they didn't screw up, really.
I think a major question that I'm sure a lot of your fans will probably really like to know the answer to is, you've mentioned in a lot of videos that there's certain movies you just won't touch because everyone's reviewed them, or there's not much you can do for a video. But with those aside, what is to date still the most requested YMS review?
It changes every once in a while, because everything that people really want me to destroy is just some trendy piece of shit movie that everybody's going to forget soon. So when Lucy was in theaters, everybody wanted me to review Lucy. I still haven't seen that because I know it's going to be a piece of shit. I don't understand why so many people watch movies when they should know that they're going to be pieces of shit. You don't have to watch Lucy to know it's a piece of shit. Anyway, I guess of all time would probably maybe be Frozen, but I already reviewed that as my happy 100,000 subscribers video. That turned out well. Yeah, I don't know. Frozen, Lucy, and I guess The Room, but I don't want to do The Room for reasons that I already explained. And I guess people used to say Twilight, but that's become irrelevant, so nobody says it anymore. I might do that in the future. That was on my list of things that I wouldn't do because I had assumed that there were plenty of reviews that were saying the exact same thing. And then I did a search recently, and I realized that not that many people have reviewed Twilight in this sort of format. So who knows? Maybe I would decide to do that at some point. But as for right now, I've got a lot of things that I could be doing. A lot of things that I could be doing that are a bit more personal towards my channel. Mm-hmm. I like to be able to make videos that, like the next two that I have in mind, I'm pretty confident that the other bigger reviewers on YouTube won't be making videos for them because, you know, based on their opinions, I can't imagine they're as opinionated on those movies as I am. You know, something like what I just did, World War Z. Most people came out of that movie being like, it was all right. Like, most people wouldn't deconstruct it and pick it apart in a video that spans the length of like 45 minutes just because nobody was really that pissed off at it. But I felt like there was a story I wanted to tell with that movie. So
I've actually never even seen World War Z. Your review is the only thing I knew of it.
All right, that's okay.
So I guess
it's probably the more entertaining version.
Well, I suppose so. Maybe you saved me a lot of money.
Hopefully.
Now, there is one thing I have noticed in a couple of your videos. I think one of them was one of your top 10s of so-and-so year. You've made jokes about other YouTube critics. In fact, I remember one you made about sort of one-off joke about Jeremy Jahns. Are there any particular, how we say, relevant YouTube movie critics that kind of you don't see the appeal of, or maybe you just don't quite understand why people like them, or maybe some that you have seen that don't get as much attention that you think people should check out? Like, you know, basically, what's your opinion on the whole YouTube movie criticism sort of community, I guess you could call it?
Okay, so there's certain YouTube critics that I respect more than others, and I don't like. It's difficult to call people out specifically being critical of them, and I want to make clear with it that one of Jeremy Jahns, what you're referencing, is probably the beginning of my top 10 of 2011 video. All I was doing there was talking about how I disagree with people making their top 10 of the year lists like in the last week of December before they have seen movies, because I just think it's a bad practice, and even reviewers that I respect still do that. And I honestly, I don't know really that many reviewers at all. I'm the only reviewer that I know that's got a decent following that's waiting over a year later to release my top 10 videos. And some people on my channel get frustrated because of that, but I think it's totally worth it. The number one movie in my 2011 review was something that just got released on Blu-ray the month before I made it. So I literally, A, would not have the footage to show in my review, and B, if I hadn't been lucky enough to see it at a film festival, then I might not have seen it at all before making it. So there's plenty of purpose behind me doing that. And when I was calling out Jeremy Jahns, I never mentioned Jeremy Jahns. I just showed a screen cap of like 20 different videos being titled, however, best of the year, blah, 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 2011, and showing the dates of the uploads and just how none of them were actually released after the year had actually ended. Mm-hmm. And that was my argument, is against form. And so if I'm criticizing something that another YouTuber or another YouTube film reviewer is doing, it's not because I have a gripe with them. Mm-hmm. It's that I consider YouTube to be just as much of an art form as film. So if I'm doing my duty criticizing film, then how would I not be at liberty to criticize other content on YouTube? If anybody's trying to claim that I can't have legitimate criticism about the format or the presentation of other YouTubers, all that's doing is just delegitimizing YouTube as a whole. I think that it's an art form, and I think that it should be criticized. And I mean, if I thought that what I saw on YouTube before I had made my channel, if I thought that everything that I saw on YouTube was great, I wouldn't really be making my channel, you know? I was filling a gap when I made my channel, and I still feel like I'm kind of doing that. I feel like I'm at least trying to provide a service that not all other YouTubers are providing, whether it be I guess my taste in film or just how I'm going to present myself in the format that I'm going to do my reviews in. And the best example of that is just my top 10 of the year videos, because nobody's are like that on YouTube, I don't think. You know, the films that I include on there, I love to pieces, but if I were to do my reviews at the exact same time that everybody else was, then those films wouldn't be on there. And that's sad to think about, that all these people are missing out on great movies. Like, nobody had Inherent Vice on their list, and I didn't even think it was amazing, but it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film, so you'd have to assume that some people would have it on their list if they'd seen it. But nobody was willing to wait the extra 2 weeks. Nobody waited to see one of my favorite movies of 2014, Mommy, by Xavier Dolan, a French-Canadian director. It's fantastic, and it was on nobody's list because everybody made their list as soon as possible to get behind the New Year's bandwagon and theoretically get more views and attention by doing that. And it's sad because the way that YouTube works is the people that release it the earliest get the most amount of attention, because people are quick to click on those things when the new year's coming up. So people will be like, oh, I want to hear a wrap up of all the best movies that I've seen this year on December 20th. And so the earlier people do it, the more likely they are to get views, and that's sad. And I'm more concerned with making a list that stands the test of time. I'm more concerned with making a list that is not just relevant to people clicking on it on December 20th through January 10th. I'm concerned about making something that people can click on and watch years later and still discover movies and have the list still be relevant, and, you know, like sort of something that's set in stone. I don't want to be making something and then 6 months later look back and think, oh, I should have included this movie, I should have included this movie. I guess I should have seen all these movies before making my list. No, it's to provide a service. And so when I criticize people for doing that, even though Jeremy Johns was one of the people in those screen caps, it wasn't directly at him. And if you think about it, literally, like, every single YouTuber, film reviewer, etc., including Red Letter Media, who I've already mentioned that I love, they all do it. I'm criticizing the presentation, not necessarily individual people. However, like I said, if you can look at a reviewer and think that, or at least notice that my style is different from theirs, it's probably because I don't want to be emulating their style specifically. You know, I would be doing things more like other people if I thought that the way other people were doing things was the best way to do it. I look at the way that people are doing things and I think, I think I should do it this way instead because I don't like that and I don't like that. I guess if I'm going to give a shout out to someone who I think is doing a fantastic job as a YouTube film reviewer, it's Tony from Every Frame a Painting. Those are some fantastic videos. They're unique. He provides lots of perspective on the technical side of filmmaking. I don't know if I've seen him really go that far into story, but just cinematography and shot composition, etc. He says a lot of fascinating, very informative things about those topics, and he is somebody that should be watched, and he's somebody that will surpass me in subscribers in the next probably 6 months maximum. He's gonna get somewhere. Anyway, there was a couple parts to your question. Did I miss anything really? You were kind of asking me about
no,
just
really.
what I thought of other YouTubers in a sense.
No, I think he kind of covered it mostly. I'll certainly be checking out that Tony guy a little later. But no, I think you kind of covered it in a nutshell. Just one-off jokes, really. But I think which sort of kind of connects to that is that because we basically said like were there any like underrated ones you wanted to shout out? There are every day there's new talent, there's new people coming out inspired by probably you or Red Letter Media or probably even me. I have no idea, but there's always people wanting to take the approach of criticizing film, whether it be on YouTube or their own site or Blip or whatever. Do you think there's any kind of advice that you could lay on some people who kind of want to pursue that sort of career?
The best advice I could give is only talk about something if you feel like you're providing an actual perspective on something. A lot of people will start doing something like a film review or like force out an analysis of their own, but you can tell that they're trying to like really force out an opinion on something, and a lot of the time people just wind up bullshitting. I think that it's important to make things that are personal. Like the videos that I try to make are videos. If I'm reviewing a film, it's usually a film that's important to me in some way, even if it's just something that's shitty to laugh at, like the After Earth thing. I had already reviewed M. Night's pretty much entire career, so of course I was going to touch After Earth. I had been waiting for that movie for so long, and I felt like I had a lot to say about it. Don't review something if you don't feel like you have a lot to say about it, is my biggest piece of advice. Just keep trying to learn from your mistakes and keep trying to find ways to improve. The day you stop finding ways to improve what you're doing is the day you peak. And if you don't have a following on that day, then you're not going to get very far.
I think that's some very sound advice. And I'd like to say thank you very much for taking a few minutes to talk to me and all the listeners who are probably big fans of yours and have enjoyed hearing a little insight on what goes on behind the Your Movie Sucks YouTube channel and website.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And for anyone else listening, if you have never seen Your Movie Sucks, it's highly recommended. One of the most entertaining, hilarious, analytical reviews. Check out his YouTube channel, which is YourMovieSucks.org, which also has...
My review of my channel is 10 out of 10. Best channel of the year. IGN.
I'm sure I certainly agree with that. And for anyone out there who would also who are familiar with him and would like to support more videos from him, you can go to his Patreon page, which will be linked in the description below. So be sure to check him out if you haven't, and support him if you love him. And
I've also got a Twitch stream if you want to watch me play video games. Sorry for interrupting you, but I'm trying to get a partnership with them, and it's really frustrating trying to get a partnership. Because they keep saying that I don't have enough of a viewership, and yet I keep seeing all these different channels that have less of a viewership than me that have partnerships. Anyway, twitch.tv/ADUMPLAZE. And if you don't know what Z is, it's the letter Z for Canadian people like me. That's all. Sorry for interrupting. I had to plug it. I had to do it.
Plug away. Anything else you want to plug? Now's your chance.
No, that was yeah, good.
But yes, anyone else, if he hasn't made you laugh, get yourself checked. But check out his channel, check out his Twitch. Everything will be in the link dump in the description of the video interview. Hope you all had a wonderful time listening to it, and please continue having a wonderful day.
Aficionados Chris was your host for tonight. This is the sign off where we say goodnight. If you enjoyed it, then please like and share. This was a podcast which he likes to call